A lot of B-movies are awesomely bad. Nothing wrong with that, but that's not what we're covering here. These are the rare breed of low-budget gems that are actually legitimately good, even if critics needed some time to come around to them.
Do you have your MasterCard on you?
No.
Good, because you don't need it. The stars are open!
Was Night of the Comet made just to poke fun at Valley Girl culture? Sometimes it seems like it. The movie sees the world threatened with cataclysm when Earth passes through the tail of a comet. But this is a special comet with radioactive dust that turns people into zombies. Among the survivors are Reggie and Sam, who largely treat what seems to be the apocalypse with disaffected bemusement. One of the things that sets Night of the Comet apart is the way it doesn't treat its premise or stakes too seriously. The protagonists look at the end of the world looming and shrug their shoulders, smack their gum, and go along with the adventure. It makes total sense that they were among the inspirations for Buffy the Vampire Slayer. John Carpenter has spent most of his career living in the perfect space between B-movies and major studio productions, having just enough studio support to get his visions put on the screen, but still retaining his scrappy, labor-of-love creative vision. Along the way, he also created some of the most iconic anti-heroes in movie history, like Snake Plissken, protagonist of Escape from New York. Snake's your basic leather-bound, one-eyed wonderkin, a former war hero who's looking at a life sentence for robbing the Federal Reserve. He'll live out the rest of his days in Manhattan, a hellscape that's become a city-sized prison. But before he gets locked up, he gets the chance to reduce his sentence if he rescues the president from the city. What follows is a series of inventive action and offbeat humor, with Kurt Russell playing Snake with so much unwashed 80s grit, you can taste the Marlboro butts on the asphalt.
We'd make one hell of a team, Snake.
The name's Plissken.
It's the rare Carpenter movie that gets a direct follow-up made by the director himself with 1996's Escape from LA. The first one's better, but the second one has a deadly game of basketball and Kurt Russell chasing bad guys with a surfboard and a tsunami. So there's that.
You gotta be kidding me.
What happens when you take the plot of an ancient Greek myth, move it to the Bronx, and try to make the whole thing happen for less than $5 million? Well, it might look something like this.
Warriors, come on to play!
Oh, that's so cool. When The Warriors was released in 1979, a lot of people didn't know what to make of it. I mean, the people making it weren't always sure what they were going to end up with. The plot is pretty straightforward. A gang known as the Warriors have to take on one rival gang after another, each with an over-the-top gimmick and outlandish costumes, culminating in a big showdown at the film's climax. It's a gritty street-level action movie that sometimes feels like there's a fantasy element clawing at the edges, trying to get in. And it might have if the movie was given more money. Director Walter Hill actually wanted Orson Welles to narrate the opening of the movie to make the mythical themes more overt, but the studio wouldn't pony up the cash. In the end, whatever they were making worked. The Warriors became a surprise underdog hit with younger viewers, and even some of the critics who dragged it through the mud eventually admitted that it has a lot going for it. Just think about it, without a Sumatran rat monkey, we might never have gotten Frodo. To most of the mainstream film-going audience, Peter Jackson seemed to come out of nowhere when he made the Lord of the Rings film trilogy. But fans of B-movies were already fans of Jackson. He'd gotten a little bit of mainstream buzz with Heavenly Creatures and The Frighteners, but his zombie gorefest Braindead, released in North America as Dead Alive from 1992, is what first got people talking about him.
They're not dead exactly, they're just sort of rotting.
One review called it the most hilariously disgusting movie ever made, which is true, but doesn't even scratch the surface. The clips you're seeing in this video are literally some of the tamest parts of the movie. We're not even touching the last 10 minutes of this movie, which have some of the most bloody and unhinged practical effects ever seen in a theatrical film. But unlike a lot of other B-horror movies that push the envelope this hard, Dead Alive is still a legitimately good movie, not to mention impeccably well made.
I kick ass for the Lord!
I kick ass for the Lord. It's actually interesting to see how many filmmaking tricks carried over from this early B-movie to the epic big screen action of The Lord of the Rings, which just goes to show that great movies don't always come from massive budgets and epic storylines.
This kind of looks like your old girlfriend.
Well, duh. Of course The Evil Dead is awesome. So awesome that you probably have a framed copy of the VHS hanging on the wall next to your fridge, like most people. And unlike a lot of these movies, Evil Dead's awesomeness was never in question. This is one of the rare B-horror movies that got strong reviews right from the start. The plot is dead simple. A group of 20-somethings awaken an ancient evil in a cabin. Lots of them die. The end. But the movie is really about Sam Raimi and a tiny cast and crew using every filmmaking trick they knew to squeeze every nickel out of their tiny budget. Is Evil Dead 2 better? Yes, it is, and that's where most of the franchise's best elements come from, but the fact is, nobody would have given Raimi $3.5 million to make that one unless he'd already shown what he could do with the first one. And even if the sequel or requel or whatever you want to call it is more fun to watch, there's more of a raw B-movie spirit in the original Evil Dead that still makes it, what's the word I'm looking for here?
Groovy.
There it is. There's a reason Tarantino put a Shaw Brothers logo at the beginning of the Kill Bill movies. Without the Shaw Brothers, there may never have been one Kill Bill, let alone two of them. In the 1970s and early 80s, Shaw Brothers Studios was the king of martial arts movies, full of over-the-top acting and nuclear zooms and fights that always sounded like this. I sound a little more Beverly Hills Ninja. Nearly all the Shaw Brothers movies are worth watching. I mean, where do you even start? The 36th Chamber of Shaolin? 5 Deadly Venoms? The One-Armed Swordsman? He's armed, but only once. All great movies for sure, but 1982's 5 Elements Ninjas is the poster child of not only what Shaw Brothers did best, but for B martial arts movies as a whole. There's a legitimate plot here about rival masters in ancient China going head-to-head and their respective students going at one another in kind, but none of that is really the point. The filmmakers know what you're there for. Over-the-top action melodrama, ridiculous costumes, and wonderfully bad sound effects, and they serve it up on a golden platter. The Rocky Horror Picture Show isn't just a B-movie, it's the B-movie. A modest film based on a modest stage musical that didn't make a huge splash upon its initial release, it's gained the kind of cult status that most other films can only dream of. One particular theater in Portland has had uninterrupted weekly showings of the movie since 1978. That's insane dedication. Actually, if there's any downside to the movie, it's that its biggest fans really like it. The midnight showings of Rocky Horror can be chaos, with fans acting out the movie in costume, throwing props on cue, and shouting back to the screen.
I knew he was in with a bad crowd, but it was worse than I imagined.
Because the movie's legacy is so intertwined with its audience's participation, it's easy to lose sight of the fact that Rocky Horror truly is a great movie. It's got incredible songs, fully committed performances by huge talents like Tim Curry and Susan Sarandon, and a story that goes in interesting and unexpected directions.
Janet!
Brad!
Rook!
Janet!
Dr. Scott!
Janet!
Brad!
Somehow it never stops being entertaining and remains a wonderful love letter to all of the sci-fi and horror B movies that came before it. 70s exploitation films covered almost every genre and topic imaginable. And while the style made stars of several of its male leads, the women who fronted their own films often struggled to achieve the same level of notoriety, except that is for Pam Grier. Grier's most well-known movie from the era is likely 1974's Foxy Brown, a legacy that was further cemented when Quentin Tarantino made Jackie Brown 23 years later with Grier again in the title role. But it's easy to make the case that Grier's best movie was Coffy, a film that can also arguably count itself among the last pure blaxploitation B movies before major studios began to get involved. Grier plays flower child Coffy Coffin, a nurse who moonlights as a sex worker so she can find the people who killed her sister. Revenge was a common trope of the genre, but Coffy got in before that trope had overstayed its welcome, and set a solid example for how to do it right.
For your own safety, see faster, Pussycat. Kill, kill.
With a name like that, you know somebody's cooking in the kitchen. But then again, filmmaker Russ Meyer was never known for his subtlety. On its initial release, 1965's Faster Pussycat Kill Kill was dismissed as a sleazy attempt to sell a movie to horny dudes. Most critics never even bothered to review it at all, and those that did had nothing nice to say about it. But as time went on, critics slowly warmed up to it, with some even saying that the movie actually champions feminism. It's now come all the way around to a respectable 75% on Rotten Tomatoes, with the critical consensus declaring that director Russ Meyer's infectious affection for camp gives this anarchic joyride exhilarating flair. A Boy and His Dog takes place in a then far-off 2024 when nuclear war has turned the world into a wasteland. Vic has a dog that he can communicate with telepathically, and the pair wander the land looking for, well, someone for Vic to sleep with.
Whatever you do, don't follow her down there.
I got to, Blood. I got to.
Long before the Fallout game series was influencing or inspiring TV shows and movies, it had influences of its own. One of the designers of the original Fallout game told The Escapist in 2009 that A Boy and His Dog was a huge inspiration from its glowing mutants to quaint communities of survivors living in underground vaults. The dark comedy elements aren't for everyone, and these days it wears its age on its sleeve. But if you can look past all that, then you'll find a scrappy and pioneering sci-fi comedy classic in A Boy and His Dog.